I've already made a video with content that will be similar to this one's, but with the new information we've received since then and the fact that this video doesn't look like it was edited on Toaster Vegas 13, I feel in the spirit of the new chess piece videos, this certainly deserved to be made. The three ancient weapons of One Piece have always been a topic I was super interested in, but for whatever reason Oda hates me and basically refuses to give me the information I need on them. As far back as Alabasta, we first started hearing about these things when Crocodile believes he has just about uncovered Pluton and describes it as being powerful enough to destroy entire islands. The whereabouts of the original Pluton are still unknown, but the blueprints for it were kept in Water 7 to be later destroyed by Franky. I'm not exactly sure how effective that would really be, but okay, I'll go with that. Then we get to Fishman Island, and not just do we get a mention of Uranus, but we eventually learn that the mermaid princess Shirahoshi has inherited the power of Poseidon. This is pretty interesting considering that at this point the fair assumption is that the ancient weapons would be physical objects since we had Pluton to go off of. We learn that similarly, Poseidon is capable of destroying entire islands, which is weird because the ability we see is to be able to control the Sea Kings, and I don't know how those things are going to sink islands, but alright, cool, maybe there's something more to it? Poseidon is supposed to wrest control over earthquakes in Greek mythology, so I guess maybe that's what's going on here. Neptune also mentions that the third and final ancient weapon is named Uranus, but doesn't really give us any information about it except that if someone was to wield it, the destiny of the world would be in their hands. So we have confirmed essentially nothing about it, but even with that shred of information as well as the surrounding details, there is quite a bit to think about. First of all three weapons are named after Greek/Roman gods. Poseidon is the ruler of the seas, so it's pretty fitting that with absolute control over the Sea Kings, it seems quite plausible that the holder of this power would basically be unstoppable in the ocean. Pluton is a little more tricky since Pluto is supposed to be the ruler of the underworld, but I think I can maybe pitch a little bit of a stretch here. In this mythology, it is called the underworld because it is literally located inside the earth. While it makes sense that Poseidon would be so powerful underwater, Pluton should, by the same token, have tremendous powers on land. But we know that doesn't really make sense since Pluton is supposed to be a ship, which means it would dominate the seas, at least above the water. This does seem strange, but I thought about it, and since the One Piece world is an archipelago, it's kind of as if the water is the land in our world, and there's even a floating restaurant to help with that effect. The Grand Line is also considered the pirate graveyard, which has a strong relation to the idea of an underworld, so I can kind of see something here. It's also worth noting that Pluto is the only one to use the Roman version of this name among the three, so it's weird that the weapon isn't called Hadon or something after Hades. Then we have Uranus, god of the sky and the literal granddaddy of the former two gods. And when I say literal, I mean he is the grandfather of both Hades and Poseidon. When I say literally, I don't mean figuratively, because I'm not a hack. So as far as these gods go, we have a pretty clear theme of sea, land, and air. In my opinion, my reasoning for Pluton displaying that theme of land is totally viable. So this would imply that Uranus is somehow going to be related to the sky. There are basically two things that come to mind when I think about the sky in One Piece: the Sky Islands and the Celestial Dragons of Marijois. The Sky Islands don't seem suspect to me, and the Celestial Dragons certainly do, especially recently, so that's who we're going to be talking about here. The Celestial Dragons refer to themselves as gods, and even live in a giant area above the clouds on a mountain where no one is allowed unless something very specific is going on and they're royalty or something to that effect. Kinda sounds like Mount Olympus, the place where the grandchildren of Uranus resided. They wield political powers at the levels of gods as well, so it's not just for show. They also wear spacesuit looking things which seem really weird unless it actually makes a ton of sense. This is the point where I start going off the rails and put on my theory cap for a crazy ride, and this is coming from the Kaido is a poneglyph guy, which is likely true by the way. I mean seriously though, I'm about to say some crazy ass shit. What if the Celestial Dragons are originally inhabitants of the moon? What if they lived up there for whatever reason, maybe they aren't even human, who knows, and somehow the moon became a barren wasteland so they had to come down to Earth where life was still flourishing? For starters, they would need some kind of advanced technology or some kind of powers to make such an expedition. So if the Earth dwellers were to see this happening, I don't think it would be far-fetched to see them as some kind of higher beings. Regardless of if that's true or not, considering the current tech in the One Piece world and that this would have had to have happened centuries ago, they probably were so much more advanced than the Earthlings that they could have easily seized control of the world whether the inhabitants liked it or not. I like to think that they revered them as gods, which would have explained why they have god complexes, and even now, like, people kind of see them as above themselves when they're walking around town and stuff, so either way it doesn't matter, but I like to lean that way. On the other hand, we also have a little information about this lost kingdom which was erased from history in the events of the Void Century. It was supposedly an extremely advanced civilization that was very powerful. It seems quite possible to me that this civilization would be powerful enough to contest the original celestial dragons. You might ask, how could this place be so advanced compared to the rest of the world? And I think it makes sense since I believe the civilization would be located on Raftel, which is seemingly the most difficult place to physically reach. Uranus was said to be active in the Void Century, which is when we can assume these two factions battled against one another. The question is, which side would have been using it? I lean towards it being the Celestial Dragons, considering their relationship with the name of the weapon and the fact that they have a giant straw hat in Marijua. To put it frankly, I believe the power of Uranus is to activate the world trees of the One Piece world in order to link them and create portals that can be traveled through. I've talked about the world trees in different videos I've done about Elbaf and whatnot, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go check those out. This would explain how both the Celestial Dragons were able to get to Earth, as well as how they managed to attack Raftel, despite how difficult it's supposed to be to get there. Because the only world tree we have seen was on the island of the Giants, it leads me to believe that perhaps each major race in the One Piece world has a world tree of its own that can be linked to each other. This also makes me believe that there are probably 4 world trees, one for the creatures of the moon, one for the giants, one for the people of the Great Kingdom, and one for the regular denizens of the world. I wouldn't usually consider them separate from the Great Kingdom, but the fact that Dragon seems to know something and claims to fight for the people makes me think that the people of the Great Kingdom are something entirely different, and since it's likely they are the D's, I could definitely get on board with it because of how different the D's have been from normal people up until this point. So then the question is, what happened? The war went on for around 100 years, so it's weird that there would ever be a stopping point, really. Is it possible that after so much time they eventually agreed on a ceasefire? What if the Great Kingdom was never actually destroyed and chose to become an isolationist country like Wano? This would explain some things. 1. Rayleigh claims that they made it to Raftel and know the history of everything. If this is the case, why wouldn't they reveal this information to the world or do something about it? It would make sense that they made it there and the people of the kingdom would tell them not to do that and it would just reignite the war. 2. The world government was actively trying to revive Pluton. What could be the reason for this? They already have a lockdown on the entire world with the exception of some pirates. Why would they need to add such overwhelming power? I believe they want its power to finish what they started and finally destroy the Great Kingdom. So, yeah, there it is, boys. The One Piece theory of everything. I intended to just talk about Uranus, but everything seems so intertwined it wasn't really possible to do it alone. I definitely wouldn't be willing to put my money on this theory being true, but it's the best I could come up with and the best theory of everything I've seen. Granted, I don't really watch many One Piece theory. So with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about the video, what you thought about this theory. Does it sound too crazy or is it actually something believable? Has anyone already thought of this? I want to hear your guys' thoughts for sure. Make sure to leave a comment. If you want to take it another step further, go to the description of this video and find the link to my Discord. You can join, no problem. It's super easy to sign up if you don't have a Discord already. It is this channel with over 1,000 members, people talking about One Piece theories, different verse battles and whatnot, all those kind of things, as well as different anime and even some other things about the real world. So it's a great place to be. Make sure to check that out if you have not done so already. With that all being said, I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your day, a great end to your weekend, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.